Hi friends, today we're going to take a little more lighthearted look at some of the things that we're doing this year, 2011, 2021, to be able to grow our organization. Now, the Pulse for Good organization is fairly small, right? We don't have a lot of full-time employees. We're not huge, right? We're serving organizations that have small budgets for the most part and are using most of those budgets to try and help vulnerable individuals. And so we're probably always going to be fairly small. But we want our culture to grow and grow organically. And one of the ways that we want to do this, even though we're remote, is be able to make sure we have some shared experiences. Now, shared experiences are really easy to get when you're in person. What 2020 has taught us as anything is all of a sudden there's a need for us to have shared experiences that aren't just in person. And while we can have as many Zoom calls as we want, there's some other ways we want to try and gather some of that shared experience. And one of the ways is we want to provide books for every employee to read on their birthday. Now, the interesting thing is we basically say whatever employee book we purchase for one person, we purchase for everybody. So if you decide you want to read The Count of Monte Cristo for your birthday, everybody gets The Count of Monte Cristo. Now, we don't have many employees, right? That's been stated. And so we're going to point out the books that we've bought so far and the shared experience of them, and what we're going to be reading in 2021. And I guess that will change as people have more birthdays, but we have a giant stack to go over right now. So here is our stack of books. These are the 6 books that were selected for this year for birthdays. They are all very different and very interesting. And I'll talk about a few of them. I can talk about how far through them I am and why they were selected and why the value of shared experience and how books offer that shared experience. Now, first thing about here is American Caesar. This was my book. Actually, no, this was not my book. This was Wes's book that he picked out for him. I love this book. Douglas MacArthur is amazing and crazy and all sorts of things. But talk about a shared experience. Try reading 1,000 pages about someone as consequential as Douglas MacArthur that is basically forgotten. It gives a lot of different chances for us to discuss and talk about things and politics and you know it bridges a gap from the early 1900s, from World War I all the way through the Korean and up into the Vietnam War, and allows us to be able to talk culturally about things in ways that we haven't been able to before, and gives us a good shared understanding and mindset. It's one of the values of reading collectively, is it helps us all have this experience of, well, I read about the time that Douglas MacArthur came up with a crazy plan to invade Korea, and you know, this was my experience with it, and be able to share and talk about those things. It provides a shared frame or mindset to be able to build analogies off of, or other things when we're having other conversations. Next book, and this was particularly interesting for us. This one's called Invisible Women. It is a fascinating book. Basically, and I'm going to probably butcher it, but it talks about the male default, how so much of our society is built around this idea of a white male being the default voice or default physical body. A great example that it gives is crash test dummies are all built to be the size of normal average white males. Well, that ends up putting the females who drive them at risk. It's been fascinating to read. It's been really interesting to think about. And, you know, as somebody with a daughter that I care about immensely, I worry sometimes about how, you know, being a group that deals with individuals that are vulnerable and data, you know, are we missing people? Are we having a default that's making people invisible? You know, for whatever demographic they may be, whether it's gender, race, sexual orientation, anything, you know, age. Are there people we're missing out by selecting defaults that could be dangerous? Fascinating read, really good for us to understand, data-wise, for us to understand what it's like to be a marginalized group, and how marginalization happens without you even noticing it. All right, next one up we have is Hooked. Hooked is excellent. This one was mine. This is the one I got for my birthday. It's the idea of building a habit-forming product. We're a product company. We build products to try and help people that work with vulnerable individuals, and we want to build a product that people love. And this is all about using the psychology of habits to try and help people love the product that we use and get into it and use it. We want people to look at our data. We want people to look at it as often as possible. And so learning from this is a really beneficial thing for us to try and understand how can we help people get in and really enjoy this experience. This is the art of strategic partnering. This one is probably a little more salesy than most people would care about. But our goals here are to get better at partnering with individuals, partnering with health groups, partnering with insurances, partnering with state and local governments, anywhere we can to partner to try and help increase our influence and the impact that we're making. The goal here is to try and understand how do we do so effectively, and how do we do so in a way that helps us make a larger impact and not get distracted. Next up, the future is faster than you think, and I will admit to having not read this yet. It's an interesting one. This one our CFO Mark picked out. It'll be really interesting, but it's an interesting thing to be able to think about how fast technology is changing, and the book covers a little bit about that, and I'm excited to go through it. And then lastly, but not least, or I guess maybe least, I haven't finished it yet. This one is Let My People Go Surfing. This was written by the founder of Patagonia. It's for sale from Patagonia if anyone wants it, but it's basically how do you build the company culture that you want. And this is a culture focused around the freedom to go surfing if you want. And as a young company, we're very focused on building a culture, and particularly a culture that can outlast us, right? Outlast any one of us, and maybe stand up to us in the fires of controversy and affliction that will inevitably come. How can we build a culture that gives the benefits we want to our employees, even when we may be the people that may be trying to take those benefits away somehow? Those are the books that we are starting 2021 reading. We're going to be reading a bunch of other things. If you have any suggestions on things we should be reading, please share them. Like we said, we get them for everybody's birthday. So as birthdays roll around, we'll be getting new books and hopefully add to the shared experience that we all have. By reading these, we all get at least some shared knowledge and understanding. It's as though we were with each other, even though we're apart. And that's the goal, is to try and build a cohesive unit, even though we'll all have very different takes on the books, just like we'll all have very different perspectives on any event. That shared experience of reading together is very beneficial. I recommend it.